Hi, I'm Christian Brindle, and welcome to the Everything Medicare Podcast. What's up, Everything Medicare Podcast Nation? Wherever you are and however you might be listening, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Christian Brindle, for those of you not familiar, and every single week, my organization, Christian Brindle Insurance Services, brings you 3 podcast episodes where we discuss your Medicare, your Medicaid, your Social Security, and everything that has to do with that golden age called retirement. Thank you so much again for tuning in to talk to me. And there's nothing that I like more than discussing one insurance company gobbling up another one. We've seen quite a bit of insurance companies gobbling up another one in the last couple of years. We've actually even seen some proposed ones. And a lot of people always want to know my take on it and if I think it's necessarily a good thing for the industry or maybe I think it's necessarily a bad thing. And there's 2 sides of this argument to be had. The first one is this, that on the negative side, it creates monopolies. It creates less competition. It creates, a couple of gigantic insurance companies that just kind of dominate everybody else, and there's not room for other companies to kind of come up and do well and, yada, yada, yada. And then there's also the argument from those, that think insurance, companies getting too big is bad. Those are typically the people that want to break up Facebook and the social media companies and those kind of things. And there's that. The other side of the argument is that it's a good thing from the standpoint that it creates a bigger, larger, unified insurance company, to which point there's potentially going to be better products available from that company because they're a bigger company opposed to a smaller company. Now, that's not always the case, but sometimes it is. I love talking about this kind of stuff, folks. There have been a couple of different acquisitions that we've talked about in the last couple of years. The most recent one was when Cigna purchased the company Express Scripts. Before that, CVS, the pharmacy company, this pharmacy company purchased Aetna, and I did an episode last year about that got a whole bunch of traffic. Very, very popular, and people seem to enjoy that quite a bit. And if you missed that episode, I can't remember the episode number to save my life, but I think it's titled something along the lines of why CVS/Aetna could become the biggest Medicare carrier, or something along those lines. I enjoyed making that episode, and I do not just look at this from the standpoint of an insurance broker, as somebody that works with all of these companies. For those of you who don't know, I also am a stock investor. I invest money into stocks. I enjoy investing money into stocks. Now, I just started doing it about maybe a little bit over a year ago, and I'm still kind of learning the game a little bit, but I try to look at this stuff from the standpoint of a stock investor as well as an insurance broker. And of course, my ultimate bottom line in looking at it from this standpoint is, what do you need to know? How does this impact you? And this impacts you whether you have a policy with one of these 2 insurance companies and whether you don't have a policy with one of these 2 insurance companies, and I'll explain why. Number one is obvious. If you have a policy with one of these 2 insurance companies, your policy is probably going to change dramatically, especially if you're the company being bought out by the other company. So that's number one. Number 2, if you don't have a policy with one of these insurance companies, there is the potential of the company becoming stronger and then potentially there being a better policy available for you in your market if one of these companies is available. So there's a lot of different things going on here, a lot of different working parts. And the bottom line is, this has impact on you anytime you see something like this go down. It might not look like it now, but give it time. And I always try to wait to kind of bring these acquisitions to your attention because they don't always go through. Typically, they have to get approved. They have to go through quite a bit of approval processes and jurisdiction regulations and things along that nature. I remember years ago, it was probably at least 2 or 3 years ago at this point, before we started doing the podcast even. So it might have been even 3 years ago. We're not quite at 2 years. I've been doing this podcast, 146 episodes, I believe in. I think this is episode 146. Yes, it is, episode 146. But I remember Aetna had agreed to purchase Humana, which I think if any acquisition out there would have rocked the industry more than any other, it probably would have been that one. I had the standpoint that if that acquisition had gone through, that would have become the largest insurance company on the planet, if not top 3. So I always try to wait until these acquisitions have been approved. The latest I heard about it was towards the end of December, and it appears that this acquisition has been approved, passed all regulations, and will indeed happen. So I wanted to bring it to your attention, give you my thoughts, my opinion on it, and kind of what you need to know anytime one company gobbles up another one. I'll tell you everything I have to say about this, including which insurance company is buying WellCare, as you know by the title. What this means, again, my thoughts, and we'll just go from there. It'll be a lot of fun. But first, I have to take a break, hear from this week's sponsor. Don't go anywhere. I have a lot to say about this one. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking with me through that break. Let's unveil this news. So the insurance company that's going to be purchasing WellCare is called Centene. Centene does Medicare, Medicaid plans. They do group insurance plans, I believe. They do Affordable Care Act, Obamacare plans. And as of the latest records, they have about 12.3 million members nationwide in 29 states. Now, WellCare is significantly smaller. So WellCare has, as of the latest records, for about 5.5 million members nationwide. So Centene's obviously the bigger company here, and usually that's the case when one insurance company buys out the other. It's almost every single time. It's kind of difficult for a smaller insurance company to buy out a bigger one. Now, from what I read, I believe it was about a little bit under $16 billion that was agreed upon. So WellCare, the people that run WellCare are basically just taking the money and running, from my understanding. WellCare is a company that has kind of an interesting history, and I know about this because I spent a year living in Florida, Tampa Bay specifically, where WellCare was originated, actually. That's kind of where their main headquarters office are, and that's where they started, in Florida. And WellCare was an insurance company that was created by a doctor, I believe in the 1980s, and he built the company up. Very, very smart guy. I drove by his house all the time when I was living in Florida, and he essentially, to my understanding of the story, created the company, ran it until about the year 2000, and sold the company off for billions. And then he went off to create newer companies later down the road called Freedom and Optimum. And I believe he's still running those companies, but don't quote me on that. So that's kind of the background of WellCare. Now, WellCare is probably the most well-known for Medicare Advantage plans and Part D drug plans and Medicare, Medicaid plans, special needs plans, those kind of things. So what do I think? Is this a good thing for the industry? Is one insurance company buying up another one a good thing? Here's what I think. I think it can be, and I think it can't be. In this particular situation, I think that it is. And the reason why I think that is simple. Neither one of these insurance companies are the biggest bullies on the block in terms of insurance companies, right? They're not the United Healthcares of the world. They're not the Humanas of the world. They're not the Aetnas of the world. They're big companies. They're multi-million-dollar companies. They have millions of members, but they're not in the 10 probably largest insurance companies that do Medicare plans or health insurance plans. So my take is simple. I think that the two of them, smaller companies, merging together will make the company stronger, which then will allow them to more effectively compete against some of the bigger boys, which will in turn force the bigger boys to improve their product lines, increase their benefits in order to stay relevant and not be threatened by this new company that's gotten larger. So I think in essence, it creates more competition. I do think if there's 2 or 3 insurance companies that are just head and shoulders larger than everybody else, I think they can just destroy everyone else in most markets. And you do see that in some places. So I think anytime 2 smaller companies can kind of combine and become a larger company, it is putting them in a situation that allows them to kind of combat the bigger boys a little bit more, which creates more competition. They're competing against each other. They're more of a threat than they were before. 2 is greater than 1 kind of thing. And the people that benefit are you, the customer, the consumer, the beneficiaries. Now, I think it can be bad if maybe, let's say, the largest Medicare insurance company in the country is buying out the second biggest one and the third biggest one and the fourth biggest one, the 5th biggest one. Let's say we're dealing with a huge company. I think that's bad because then there is no competition. So there's 2 types of acquisitions. There's acquisitions that create competition, and there's acquisitions that destroy the possibility of competition. I'm for competition because without competition, the insurance company can do whatever they want. The people have no choice. They're not going to leave. And the benefits suffer, the policies suffer, and in turn, you, the policyholders, suffer. So I think this particular one is good, but not every single acquisition is good. That's my take. I think that this hasn't been on the news as much. I think you probably have heard about Cigna purchasing Express Scripts. I think that was an interesting acquisition that probably didn't get a whole lot of attention. I don't think we talked about it. I definitely was fascinated by CVS purchasing Aetna because CVS owns another insurance company called SilverScript that does Part D drug plans. And so they owned that insurance company, and they also owned Caremark, which is a pharmacy third-party supplier. They've just had their fingers dipped in all different kinds of things from a healthcare standpoint. And then they come in and buy one of probably the 5 largest insurance companies based on membership, health insurance companies, I should say, in the country. And that just kind of instantly makes them a tremendous player in the health insurance space. And they also own SilverScript. So I thought that whole thing was interesting to kind of see what they would do with that. Ultimately, what they ended up doing was selling all of their Part D drug plans over to WellCare, which we did an episode about during the enrollment period. So if you had an Aetna Part D standalone prescription drug plan, not a Medicare Advantage plan, but a drug plan only, and you noticed it turned into WellCare January 1st, that's why, because of that acquisition. There was just a domino effect. Anytime there is an acquisition that's of immense proportion, you're typically going to see a domino effect. A lot of different things are impacted. So with Aetna, we kind of can look back and kind of see how it was impacted. Aetna was bought up by CVS. CVS was able to combine Aetna with everything they're doing, from having clinics out of their stores, which they're starting to roll out more and more. And there was an article put out about it, and I posted it on one of our Facebook pages saying, hey, I said this was going to happen 6 months ago. And here it is. Trying to basically be top-notch in every area of healthcare. They're going to own the doctors, the providers. They're going to own the pharmacies. They're going to own the pharmacy companies and Caremark. They're going to own the insurance companies. They're really making moves in an interesting way. And because of that, Aetna Part D PDP members had their policies sold off to WellCare. So they turned into WellCare plans, which now WellCare has been bought out by Centene. So a huge domino effect here. And potentially, we could have seen that WellCare and Centene might not have been interested in buying WellCare until they added on all of these Aetna Part D drug plans. There's just a domino effect that can happen in the industry. It'd be interesting to look back a year or two from now and kind of see how this ended up transpiring and having a domino effect of its own. Probably not as big as a domino effect of an Aetna and a CVS could have, but a domino effect is typically felt nonetheless. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to be right back. I have to take one more break. I have some final thoughts I would like to share with you about this. I will be back. You're not going to want to miss what I have to say. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks so much for sticking with me through that break. Essentially, folks, if you're a WellCare member at this point, you never know exactly how something's going to look after an acquisition. For example, CVS bought Aetna, and it's taking years for that to actually determine what that's going to look like. From my understanding, they're gonna let Aetna stand on their own two legs, and CVS will be the parent company. Sometimes you see that. Sometimes the plans are completely rebranded into the new insurance company's brand, and they change dramatically. You don't really know. So I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't be trying to jump ship on your particular policies. In my opinion, I think that what it comes down to is simply this. Let's wait and see how this transpires. And even if it does get rebranded into the new insurance company, that doesn't always necessarily mean it's a bad thing. We just don't know enough at this point. All we know is it's just barely been approved. Insurance company acquisitions take years typically to fully integrate and change everything over. So keep that in mind. Years ago, Aetna bought out a company called Altius, also known as Coventry, which was one company that bought out another as well, two smaller companies, and then the big Goliath company came in and bought them in Aetna. And Altius remained Altius, and Coventry remained Coventry for several years until they were completely just transitioned into Aetna programs. But it took years for it to happen. You never know how an acquisition is going to have things turn out and how things are going to look. So keep that in mind. It doesn't always mean one thing. It doesn't always mean another. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to me today, folks. As always, we don't forget we are in what's known as OEP, Open Enrollment Period, which goes from January 1st to March 31st, which basically, if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, you're allowed to change it one time during the OEP to either another Medicare Advantage plan or original Medicare with a Medicare Supplement plan. We can work with you. If you'd like to just compare your plan just to see if there's anything better, we work with all of the different insurance companies in basically all of the markets in Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, Texas, South Carolina, and Florida. Again, that's Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, Texas, South Carolina, and Florida. Our office number is 801-255-5340, 801-255-5340. Give us a call. I'd love to talk with you. And who knows, maybe we might be able to help you. And as always, folks, if you don't live in one of those states, or maybe you're just content with your plan and you just like hearing how you can maximize your plan, which I can definitely appreciate. If you're listening to us on a platform that allows you to do so, please do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review. Leave us also some feedback on what you like about the show. And we just love hearing from you. It helps us reach more people just like you as well with the algorithms. There's millions of people all over the country that are confused about their Medicare. You can help be a solution to that by helping push our information forward to more ears that need to hear it. Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate you. I care so very much. I hope that our audience sees that, and I think that you do. We'll be back with you with another episode on Saturday, which I will be having a guest. You know him, Randy W. Hall. Did some work together during the enrollment period. We're going to have a fun episode for you, so you're not going to want to miss that one. Take care. Have a wonderful day, everybody.